Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert.
And Ryan,
And today, what are we doing, Ryan?
we are doing that good old top 10 movies of the year list.
Let's
Uh
go.
yeah, how many movies did you watch?
I watched, actually, I'm glad that you corrected me. Ryan, right before we started, actually reminded me of a movie that I liked that I forgot. I watched 20 movies now that he added that one I forgot.
And that's pretty that's it's not a bad amount and you've been busy with working and such. I've watched quite a few less than last year for me. I've watched 120.
Dang,
So
is it really 120? Wow, yeah. Ryan
well,
sends me his list.
I've added more since I last sent some to you.
Yeah, Ryan sends me his list so I can look at his list so I can put my list together.
Yeah. But yeah, so a mere 120 movies. There's definitely movies that I wish I could have crammed in there, but one thing I do is like when December hits and people start saying what the best movies of the year are, I'm like, okay, now I need to start watching these. And then but then I run out of time because it's like trying to cram it all in by the end of the year. And a lot of people's best movies are like 2+ hours, and it's like I can only watch so many of those.
Yep. And I have told Ryan before in the last years, I've been like, I'm being very judicious with my time. I'm only gonna watch I only want to watch movies that believe are gonna be good and I'm gonna like. There's been a few like if I looked at that the list of only 20 where like some of them were questionable and maybe I kind of had an idea ahead of time that they weren't gonna be like fantastic. But I was like, oh, I'll give this a chance, or I was, going to see it with my girlfriend, and it was like I was fine if it wasn't like fantastic. I'll say almost every time I've had a thought about how I thought a movie was gonna go. I've been like 80-90% of the time like that's pretty much exactly what I expected.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a lot more willing to see a movie that I don't know if it's going to be good. But I think one of the reasons why I saw so fewer movies this year is that I was not so willingly free to go see a movie, even if I didn't think that I would like it. Like, there were definitely times where I'd be like I kind of would, I would watch that movie, but I'm not like dying to go see it. So movies would just sort of slip by for
Mm.
me. And
Yep.
I think that's just the nature of being busier than I was last year. Or yeah,
Yeah. It'd be happening like that. It's crazy that even 120 movies come out in a year.
way more than that. Way
Yeah.
more.
It's wild to think that. Um,
Like just think about like how many new movies pop up on Netflix in a month. And that's just one place
yeah.
that's putting out movies.
I guess I'm always I'm thinking more of like movie theater theatrical releases. But yeah, you're right. Like on as far as like Netflix, Paramount Plus, all the Disney Plus, like I mean, like the countless movies coming out during the year. So,
I will say
um,
of my top 10, only one of them was a movie I did not watch in a theater. I do believe it, or actually, two of them I didn't watch in a theater. I assume they both had theatrical releases, but by the time I got around to watching them, I just had to watch them on streaming. But most of them I was able to watch in a movie theater,
mhm.
which is the ideal.
Theater. You were able to view them in theater.
Theater. Oh.
The theater.
Well, I mean, without further delay,
Yeah.
and if we have any honorable mentions, we'll save it for the end just in case there are overlapping honorable mentions, and maybe throw in some of a little worst list, maybe a top five worst if we are feeling it. But without further ado, do you want to start or should I start?
I'll get us started, right? I'm gonna start. So again, I actually at the last minute had to add two, so this bumped it down. So this right before I remember those was the eight. Now it is the 10. The Bike Riders.
The bike. Oh, this movie's actually good. I actually quite like that movie.
Yes, I did also like that movie. Here's the thing is that like a lot of the movies on these lists feel like pretty far out. Like I think most of them came out at least, 3 months ago.
Mhm.
There's a couple that are more recent. but I don't know that I suffer much from like a recency bias here because some of my highest rated ones are all like much older. And I thought to myself, like when I was trying to like look at this list, I didn't have that many to pick from, but I was trying to like remember like how did the things make me sort of feel. And I let that guide me. And then I also, measured it by like how good was the movie overall as a movie. And yeah, the Bike Riders just, it had like a good vibe, a good feeling, impactful movie, great acting from the leads, Tom
Yes.
Hardy and
Austin
Austin
Butler.
Butler.
And
Um,
I want to say Jodie Comer, she plays the wife,
yeah.
and then I think Mike Feist, who was in another movie that will actually appear on my list. He's the reporter guy.
All right. Oh
Like,
yes. Yep. Another movie that I'm pretty sure y'all that same movie is on my list as well.
we'll see. I remember first seeing him in West Side Story.
Mhm. Yep. But Back Riders, good movie, solid. Number 10. Again, I also like to warn as we go forward. This is not an objective list because I do think of movies like in an objective and a subjective way. I think like how much did I like a movie and how good is the movie. So to say that, Bike Riders is here and stuff that I put above it is not like these movies are better than that movie. It does shape my opinion, like if it's a better, more well structured, put together movie overall. Um, I'll give you an example later of like a movie that almost was on this list, but I would say is not like necessarily objectively like a better movie than a lot of others.
Yeah, like it's funny that you sort of mentioned that. This is maybe a bit of a tangent, but me and Martin were doing like a horror list, and like there's a part of me that was like, oh, I want to put that M. Night Shyamalan movie Trap in my top 10, but I'm like, I don't know if it's actually good though, but I
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
yeah, I get that. I get that opinion. But number 10 for Ryan.
Number 10 for Ryan. So this is the movie I literally watched yesterday, which is, maybe recency bias there. And I watched the movie because it's got a lot of I see it in like sort of the predictions for movies to be nominated for best animated feature. And I'm a sucker for a good animated feature. So my number 10 is Memoir of a Snail, which is an Australian stop motion production, and it follows a story about this little girl as she grows through her life, and she has this sort of snail obsession, and she goes through quite a few sort of like tragic situations, but she sort of gets by with family and friends, but um stuff happens. Her life's not easy, but there's just it is a sort of like quiet, simple little movie, but it sort of sneaks up. At least not for me. It sort of snuck up on me how much I was sort of connecting to the character, because I think part of it's like seeing her like throughout the ages and seeing like she's sort of narrating the whole thing, so you get this like sort of inner like way that she sees the world. It was just a little delight, and it was like a easy 90-minute watch, like 90 something minute watch. And yeah, I understand why it's getting some attention. I don't think it's going to win best animated feature. I have a movie on this list that I think deserves that better, and even it I don't think is going to win. I feel like there's another movie that's probably going to win that, but we can, talk about that if that movie comes up. But
Mhm.
yeah, Memoir of a Snail.
Memoir of a Snail.
Yeah,
Very well. Is it
yeah.
when you say best animated feature, is that for
This coming year's Oscars.
okay, is that Oscar list already out?
No, it's just like there's like the short list of like what is predicted to get the
Mhm.
nominee. I feel like with animated feature, it's usually a little more like, oh, they have a good idea of what's actually going to be there because there's a lot fewer animated
Mhm.
movies than there are, like non-animated movies. And yeah, so I feel like I think it probably has a good shot of getting nominated because there's going to be the obvious, the Disney, the DreamWorks are going to get in there, and then but yeah, we'll see. I hope it gets nominated. It deserves it.
Well, sounds cool. I take your recommendations highly. So I even though it's called Memoir of a Snail, I bet it's not slow.
No, yeah, I mean but it is like it's a sweet little movie. I don't know if it would be your taste, but I think it's quite good. But I guess I should move into my number nine then.
Yes, indeed.
My number
And what
nine
is it?
is not a movie that's from another country. It is an American movie. American.
Mhm.
Directed by one of my favorite Nepo babies, Zoe Kravitz. It is the film Blink Twice.
Blink
Um,
twice. Blink twice. Oh, does that
with
have
Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're looking at your list and thinking there's a lot of movies that I was like, I would probably go see that, and I just didn't like make it a
Yeah.
priority.
Yeah. I so this movie like it looked good to me and I went into it like, like general idea of what it looked like it was about. And I was kind of taken aback. First of all, there's a content warning at the beginning of the movie, which should have tipped me off that something was going to happen. But I didn't really expect what the movie sort of delivers. And I'm not going to give away what the movie delivers, but it was really effective for me. I did not see like the sort of twist thing coming. And when it was revealed, I was like, wow. And then the sort of so this movie, from what I've seen online, is a bit controversial in that not everyone likes how how it ended and people don't like there's like
Don't
I
spoil
think
because I actually might watch this.
yeah, it may be from like a sort of thematic thing that people don't connect to it, or maybe they just don't like how it ends. But for like at least from like a thrilling, a sort of like a psychological thriller perspective, I was engaged, I was grabbed, I was into it. I just had a good time, and it has like a pretty like stacked cast. The lead actress, I don't know if I've seen her in anything before. Her name's Naomi Aki, but Channing Tatum, um, Christian Slater, uh, I'm blanking. Haley Joel Osment, Kyle MacLachlan. He has a smaller role, but there's people in there that you would recognize, and yeah, I think Zoe Kravitz did a good job with her sort of directorial debut.
Is that her
I
directorial debut? Has she not done something before?
I mean, she's acted before, but
Ah, okay. Right, that's
yeah,
why I recognize her.
the daughter of Lenny
I
Kravitz,
I also recognize that part, but I was like, why
and
do I recognize her from film?
yeah, so you would have seen her in what was it? Uh, was it a Hunger Games movie? No, it was a Divergent movie, and she was in Mad Max Fury Road, and she was in Fantastic Beasts, the second one. Yeah,
Forgettable.
yeah, it was a bad movie, but I like her. All right,
Yeah.
so that's my number
Alrighty.
twice.
His number nine. I do it's what'd be good to do is like a couple like a short list of like go see this movies because that's kind of like I think at the time I heard that that was like a really good performance by Channing. I think I heard somebody saying they were like, this is another example of how like Channing Tatum is kind
Yeah,
of like has more range than you expect.
yeah, he's quite good in it. I actually quite I think when I like because I went back to watch the Magic Mike movies when the new one came out because I was like I like that was when I was willing to watch movies that I didn't think I would like as much because I just had the time to do it. And I was actually quite impressed with like his actual like it was actually just like the first one at least was like a serious movie.
Mm. Yep. But onward. My number nine, Twisters,
Twisters. Oh, I like that
which
movie.
which was just it was just like I remember making fun of that movie. I remember saying like I saw trailers for it and being like, "What the fuck are they making remaking Twisters for? Like, who wants to go see Twisters? Like, who wants to?" I like remember just kind of being like feeling, but I remember also like watching it and just being like, I like again watching trailers. I do get a pretty decent sense for like kind of how like good the movie looks and stuff. And I remember thinking I was like, I remember thinking who wants to see Twisters, but also I was like, it doesn't look terrible. And then I heard that it was like surprisingly good, just a solid movie. And I was like, you know what? I'm down to go see a solid movie. And it was a solid movie. Like I was like, wow, that's just a good, well put together, like good story. Everything just flows, everything works. And in an environment where there's a lot of times movies just, I mean, the movies have cool stuff in them, but like story suffers, that delivered.
I yeah, I've still never watched the original Twister, but watching this movie in theaters, it gave me the vibe of like, oh, this is why that original movie was a big deal. Watching tornadoes is cool.
Mhm.
This is exciting. I'm
Yeah.
excited for this. And
I remember clips from the original one. I remember like the Dorothy thing and then like trying to release the stuff, but like I can't and the
I,
main
I
guy.
just I just imagine like a cow flying in the wind.
Mhm.
And like this has nothing to do with the movie Twister, but in that Disney Channel original movie, Phantom of the Megaplex, there's like a movie playing that was about a tornado. And like the thing that the Phantom does was put on this big fan, the dog. And like whenever I think of the movie Twister, I think of that movie. Very, very much non sequitur.
Yeah. But solid movie. That's my nine. Not much more to like go on about it.
Yeah,
I just thought of it. I was like, that was a good movie. That deserves
I
to be
am
up in the 10.
I am blanking on the lead actor's name, but he is a star.
Paul, is it Paul?
It is
No.
not Paul.
Mm. Yep.
I'm
Nope.
blanking
Never
on his
mind.
name. He's not in any of the movies in my top 10, so I didn't his name is out of my brain for right now.
Forgettable.
He's not forgettable, but yeah. So what is your number eight?
Uh, my number eight is Inside Out 2.
So that was almost my number 10. That
Ah,
movie is actually quite great. That
it
is
is
a
all it's
good
it,
movie.
it really is. It is just solid. It's just, not much to
It
say about
like
it except it's a good fucking Pixar movie.
I mean it's the highest grossing movie of the year, so yeah, most of y'all probably watched it.
I've actually been at my neighbors and watched it, well, half watched it multiple times, almost entirely watched it a few times because I mean, it's the movie that their daughter is obsessed with. So, like,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, one thing, like overall, I don't like it better than the first Inside Out, but I will say it's definitely funnier than the first Inside Out.
mhm. I think it
And
works, in some ways, like I there's something about, like when you build on like you make a first movie and then you build on it and like in the second movie there's like a development, right? There's the simple like, there's more emotions. There is something that's satisfying about just having more emotions, about the emotions being together more, right? Because in the first movie, it's really like joy and sadness and then the rest of the emotions and they're having like there's just less interaction. Like for most of the movie, there's not much of interaction between them. So this gives the opportunity where there's more of most of them together the whole time and
yeah,
interaction with more of them. So there's like, it's just a development of the same concept and it works and it gives us more.
yeah, it's like I feel like when that movie sort of like was announced, I at least for me, there's a part of me that was like, oh, this feels like this feels like it could just be a cash grab, but like maybe they have something in mind that makes this worth doing, and they did. Like this is it, like this movie warranted existing. It is good. It
Yep.
it yeah, it does its job.
Yep. I will use this platform right now to express an opinion that I have. Maybe it's an unpopular opinion. Anybody can disagree with me, but I continue to, even though, the movie is what it is, but I continue to question the choice of emotions that they picked. Like I keep thinking to myself, I'm like, are these really like fundamental emotions that actually like rule you? Like, if I was going to like I was on board with the first, five emotions. I'm like, yeah, those all seem pretty fundamental. Those all seem key, right? I could see how those are something that the rest of your actions all stem from. The ones that come later, I'm like, you're all like kind of secondary emotions that sort of just feel like pieces of other emotions. Like you're just and So I was like, why are you again? In the end, they just had to come up with something. They made it up. Like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, like, well, I don't have like better ideas per se, but I just always am like, mm, are these really
I
fundamental emotions? Ennui is like a fundamental emotion.
yeah, I mean it's like
Like
boredom. Yeah, I mean
yeah, it is the boredom.
and it I yeah, I like but like at the same time it's like I'm not upset about it. I don't know like is nostalgia an emotion? Is that like a real
It,
emotion? Or
exactly.
like
And what my thought is too, I'm like, okay, so if these things can be an emotion, and I get what I get, the argument that was made to me by a friend when I said that was, yeah, but these really do capture what it's like to be a teenager. I'm like, that is a fine thing to say. Yeah, these do exemplify being a teenager. But does that mean that because they feel secondary, they feel tangential, right? Does that mean that like yeah, every like secondary type emotion you ever feel ends up having like a person that like runs your body? You know, do they
yeah.
go away at some point? Like if we again,
Because like when you see the parents insides, they just had the
mhm,
five emotions in the first
yep.
movie.
Do those teenage ones go away? I mean, like, but like later we see
Uh,
at the end of the thing that
I
they
definitely have
didn't fully go away.
anxiety. I definitely still experience anxiety. Experience embarrassment. They don't go away.
Yeah. And so it makes me think, I'm like, so does that mean that you just end up like having like 100 people in your head that run your thing? Because there's like so many variations of emotion. Like you could build off that. You could get to 20 or 30, like, in a very reasonable way.
Also, I experienced embarrassment before I was a teenager. There were things that I
Mhm.
got embarrassed about before I was a teenager. Like,
Exactly. Mhm. You
and
know what? Inside
like
Out too, you suck. You did it wrong.
worst movie of the year. No, it's still
Um,
good.
That's
It's
my
still
yeah, but that's my little gripe. It doesn't really take away from the movie because in the end, it's like okay, that doesn't make the movie bad. It's not like your logic is wrong. Then they shouldn't be the right emotions. But it is like a little thing, like an observation that I make about it, about their the logic, the continuum of that world. So
Actually, I don't have glasses anymore, so I can't push them up.
you just look like a nerd.
Be a nerd.
But I digress. Thanks for listening to my little extra thing there. On
Yeah.
to your number eight.
My number eight. Well, I think when we look back at the year 2024 and we think about a movie, an animated film featuring a robot in a world of animals, the movie we'd be thinking of is Robot Dreams.
Robot Dreams.
Yeah. I
Totally
I
unfamiliar.
yeah, probably. I was trying to like make a sort of joke about the Wild Robot being the movie about a robot around animals being like clearly the movie that people actually saw, whereas Robot Dreams is a Spanish-French production. It is an animated film with no dialogue. And it was actually in consideration for like awards last year, but it didn't come out until this year. So I think we briefly talked about it when talking about Oscars before. However, now I can actually put it on a year end list, and it warrants being on my year end list. It's a great little movie. It's like the basic premise is about this dog who is living in the city, and he's just a lonely guy, so he orders a little robot pal, and they form a quick sort of relationship, friendship, whatever you want to call it, between the two of them, and then something happens that changes the dynamic of that relationship, and we just it goes from there. And I again, like, I don't know if this is a movie that most people have seen, have heard of, are gonna see, but it's just another quiet little movie that like I experienced it and it spoke to me. And it's not gonna be the last movie on my list where I just kind of have to describe it that way. I saw it and it spoke to me.
Yep. That's all that really is required, for the top 10. Like,
Hmm.
and the thing is, Ryan, like doing the podcast thing and being forced to watch movies that were like outside of like what I would normally really gives me like when you say like, oh, I watched like a Spanish French film and it's about this, like those this is how doing this, really the Oscars, like the Oscars making me like go watch like films that I probably would never would have watched before has made really expanded my, even whether I watch it or not, my willingness to accept or believe like, ah, yes, I could totally understand why that movie, even if it's a strange concept, could be really, like a fantastic art piece, and evocative, and speak to somebody, and I can just get that.
Yeah. I have a feeling that there is an Oscar movie that I at least had it in my listing of movies because I counted it as a movie from this year that was a Oscar nominee earlier this year because of like movies being available and stuff. I have a feeling it might be on your list since you had it pretty high on your Oscar ranking, but we'll see. We'll see.
We'll
But
see.
I suppose that means I go into my number seven, correct?
I believe that is the case, my dear
And
brother.
all right, at my number seven is the Shudder original movie Late Night with the Devil, starring David da Dasmalchian. I hope that I said his last name correctly. He's a guy that you would probably recognize from things. He I feel like the thing that might recall him the best is he's the polka dot guy in
Ah,
the Suicide Squad.
yep.
And like he's like a face you would recognize from other stuff. But that's like
When,
a
yeah.
yeah.
Once you said somebody I recognize, I see exactly what you're saying. I'm like, yeah, he's in stuff.
Yeah. But that's one where I think it's easy to recall the specific person. But
Mhm.
yeah, so he sort of leads this movie in Late Night with the Devil. It's a sort of found footage horror film in which you're basically watching this like recording of a 70s talk show on an episode where things sort of went wrong. And the things that go wrong surround him. It's like a Halloween broadcast, and he brings on this little girl who's purported to be possessed by the devil, and that's sort of like the big final like third act thing of the show. And so you're watching the show as it was recorded at the time, and you're seeing the in between breaks of him like talking with like the background crew, and you're like just seeing all these little things that start to like build up, and you're like seeing like, oh, this is how like you because you can see something's not right and something and you know something's not right because it's like it's a movie, but then the way that things turn out and like the the way things sort of go did kind of catch me off guard, and I didn't see it happening the way that things go, and I just thought it was like a just a good a filmmaking experience, and I like the sort of this like it's not quite nostalgic because it's not like I was around in the 70s to watch 70s talk shows, but like the way that it's like set with that sort of old film quality. And yeah, it's a solid movie. And again, the David Dastmalchian, gives a good performance. I don't know if there are other actors in that movie that I recognize, but I think it's probably a little lower production overall, but good movie. I was really pleased that I watched it.
Mhm. Excellent. I'm gonna put that on my list because that sounds like it's probably pretty cool. Like, not that I'm a super big horror fan.
Yeah.
Angela is though. So, and it sounds like it has a little bit. What I love is I like psychological thriller. I do like movies that are kind of sinister,
Mhm.
but like have a bit of a mystery in it. That helps. Like I always go back to being that I really don't watch. I never go out of my way to watch horror films. I will watch them. There's some I won't watch because I know what I don't like.
Like
But
Terrifier.
yeah, no, I would not. I already know what that is, and I don't like it. Not my cup of tea.
It's not in my top
But
10.
I go back to like Hereditary. I remember Hereditary being a movie where I was like, yeah, I'll watch this, and it was like what made me really like A24 because I mean, it is that movie is kind of like gruesome in some ways, but it's shocking. It makes you like the whole time you're like, what is going on? And it's just this building tension. It was just I think I always remember it being a well put together movie, and I'm like, this is my kind of like horror broad genre type movie that I like. And that kind of
It's
sounds like it's the same sort of like thing, if I'm right about that. Not maybe not like Hereditary, but there's a buildup. There's like a you know something's wrong. And it's almost like you're waiting for the shoe to drop, and I kind of like the suspense of that.
Yeah, it's funny the way like that you would bring up Hereditary. It reminds me of a film critic on YouTube that I like named Dan Murrell, and he kind of has the same spiel about Hereditary, like being like his sort of like foray into watching more horror than he would have otherwise, because it
Mm.
made him like kind of showed what horror can be,
Yeah.
and I I like Hereditary. I've never rewatched it, and I've heard that it's better on rewatch. Um, I've always been more connected to Ari Aster's second film, Midsummer. That
I
movie is
also like Midsummer too.
Midsummer is kind of that's peak horror for me personally. But yeah, like I like that horror can be something like it's not all like jump scares.
Yeah. Or like gruesome slasher, like the thing there,
Not
I
all
get we're going on
horror.
like a tangent about horror, but like
Yeah.
whatever, it's good talk. But I agree. Like there's a lot of things in horror that I don't really love. I know I don't really like slashers. They're okay. I don't like super gruesome stuff. I don't just like, like gore porn. Like that stuff doesn't appeal to me, but I respect that people do like it, right? I don't super love like just kind of scary ghosty stuff,
Mhm.
but like things that just like again it's the Midsummer Hereditary where there's like a story, there's something to find out, psychological thrillers which aren't even super horrific, where they just lead you on like you where I'm like into wanting to find out what's happening. The suspense is killing me,
Yeah.
and just and that's but the thing is those movies are really tricky to do. They're really hard to do well because like sometimes you'll have such great buildup, and if you have all this built up and you don't like end it correctly, you don't like bring it to like what is a reasonable, satisfying, that this ties it all up, we get it now conclusion. Like you just lose right at the finish line.
Yeah.
So I appreciate when people can like do it well.
No, yeah, totally. And I this is not the only horror movie that made my list. I have potentially more than one left to talk about, but yeah, I I dig horror. Uh but
No,
let's try to move on though. I think it's your number seven, correct?
my number seven. Well, mine is a departure from that tone to something totally different. Deadpool and Wolverine.
Ah, Deadpool.
Yes, I, if we were to I could get into it deeper, and I could say there are some issues with the movie as like like this, there are some issues. Like I could be like, oh, this isn't a perfect movie. I didn't give it like a super, fantastic score. But what I said to myself, I said I had like two scores for it, I think, if I recall. I said I was like, as a movie, like just like more objectively, it's like a C plus. As a Deadpool movie, it's like an A minus. And then I kind of like brought that together, and I think I was at like like a B because I what I felt is I was like this again I can point out the little things, but this basically gave me what I would have hoped for from a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Like at the end of it, I was like, like again, I held both opinions of like, yeah, I could see this could have been better, these little things, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, but in the end, I was pretty satisfied. I was like, wow, I was happy with that. There's just a lot of like, like silliness, that was to be expected. They went even, they went even further, like than other Deadpool movies, where it just really went like full on Deadpool on the nose, like it kind of felt like no holds bar in the sense of like restricting the Deadpoolness, and I'm like that's what we wanted. I appreciate and I love that it was so tongue in cheek even about like Disney and like Marvel. It's just so irreverent, and that's exactly what I would have hoped for, and so like that made me so very satisfied, and like all that just kind of excuses it. It's like we get it, you know it's they put together a movie and it works, but in the end, if it isn't perfect, it's like, yeah, well, we weren't fucking going for perfect. We were going for Deadpool. So
Yeah, so I appreciate you sort of like recognizing that the movie does have flaws. I I know that watching the movie I had a good time. I remember if I start to think about it, I remember like a lot of moments where I was like, "Oh my God." I'm happy I'm watching this. This is cool. This is so fun. This is so good. But I do find myself just sort of getting down, like being bogged down on that movie because I feel like I get a little too caught up in what I feel like was hoping it would be better. I was hoping it would be the thing that saved the MCU, and for me,
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't feel like it did that.
Oh, I mean, no. If like MCU's like it's dead. It was never coming back. But it was a nice Hail Mary to like, bring, present something worth walking away from with
Hey, maybe Captain America will be good.
no. I
Uh,
can, bro, that movie's doomed. Like I've seen trailers and I'm like, okay, sorry. I don't want to be so like I look at the trailers. I always judge trailers. Trailers are key. I'm
I think
looking
it's
at it. I'm not feeling great about it. I
yeah.
definitely, I'm not. I don't have high hopes for it. This story's like, I'm not like getting kind of where it's going. It's not like grabbing me. It's not making me like intrigued. Um, and I've also just heard about, like I don't really pay a ton of attention to it anymore. But like I've heard that there's like tons of like they've had to go through reshoots and like the testings of it were bad and like this and that and like that's a recipe for failure. If they had to go back and reach, there's only so much you can do. Like if the fundamentals of your movie were bad, like it's probably just bad, man.
Well, I'm gonna be hopeful. I'm gonna try to be hopeful for it. I don't think the trailer looks very good,
Mm.
but I've seen there have been good movies with bad trailers. There have been bad movies with good trailers. So we'll see it when it comes out. But yeah, I wanted to like Deadpool and Wolverine more than I did. But I think it being on your list, honestly, it makes sense. It was still an enjoyable time when I
Yeah.
watched it. I did have a good time.
Yep. It was a good time. That's what I remember. Like that when I was looking back, it's been a while since I watched some of these movies, right? And I just remember being like, that was a good time. I was satisfied with that. I felt like I had a good time. And that's sometimes that's what I went in for, right? I try to measure my expectations when I go in for movies sometimes. In the past, I've gotten my hopes up and they haven't met, times I've went in low and I went way over. And yeah, that was like medium expectations and maybe a little over medium return for it. So,
All right.
but
So you're number six, correct?
my number six, yes. My number six is In Time with
All
Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. This is one of the movies that Ryan reminded that Ryan. This is the movie he reminded me of right before we started, and I was like, oh my God, I almost forgot that movie. I really like that movie. Yeah, just like if you're
Okay.
not a fan of like if you're a heartless cold person and you're not a fan of like crying a little bit and being sad, but like in a good way, like maybe not your movie, but this is like I was like emotional a good amount of good amount of this movie. I was definitely it's just it's if you let yourself get into it, it's an interesting movie because it's not told chronologically. It goes back and forth in time, and it's done in a way that's very constructive. Because you're not it does end up like kind of sinking down to like where it is, like the ending, but the going back and forth does allow you a different perspective on like this journey. And I'm this is not a spoiler. It's what the whole movie's about. It's the very first scene, so it's not it's about the one Florence Pugh's character gets
Answer.
like cancer in the movie.
Yeah, that's in the
So
trailers.
again, not a secret, not a spoiler. It is the first thing you find out. But so like it's not like you're taking this journey where you already kind of know in some sense, like what's going to happen to a degree, but it's really interesting. The way that it goes back and forth is a really cool literary tool for telling the story. Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh do a great job. And it's heartfelt and it'll and like maybe make you cry. So cry in like the good way.
I did not want to interrupt you, but the movie is called We Live in Time,
We live
correct?
in time. Yep, we live in time. See, look, I even forgot the damn title. We live in time, everybody.
All
Andrew
right.
Garfield, Florence Pugh.
I
Yeah.
did not I did not get a chance to see it. It did look good. I think it just came out. around a time when it was just sort of busy for me to try and go see movies or do anything. But yeah, it did look good. I do like the fact that you regarded it so highly does make me want to catch up to it. I just, have not gotten around to it. But hey, like I do like Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield, so I'll have
Yeah,
to.
watch it at home with your, for our viewers, or just watch it at home with your significant other, and like put your head on their shoulder and cry a little bit.
Try.
And but that is my number six. So your number six.
My number six, and so this is the part of the list for me where I'm like, oh, I think all of these movies are like truly like spectacular and exceptional. And I want to preface that when I put
Mhm.
at number six on my list, Dune Part Two,
Mhm.
that like this movie, I walked out of it and I was like, oh, this is gonna be my best movie of the year. This movie deserves to win Best Picture, and here it is sitting at number six.
Ryan, I will let you know that my number five is also Dune 2. So
Oh, let's talk about it together then.
yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it
Yeah,
together. I guess so we'll talk about it and then we'll just go right to your number five. Just
yeah, that works with
yeah.
me. So
But
yeah,
yes,
Dune.
Dune 2,
Dune.
fan I read the book after I watched the first movie. So
Mhm.
I did not read the book before watching the first movie. I didn't have any context on the events of the first movie other than watching it. I remember a little bit of watching the 1984 Dune when I was a kid. It's a movie I watched like maybe 30 minutes of. I remember I played like a Dune, RTS game when I was younger. So I was familiar with Dune in a little bit, saw that first movie, and I thought it was exceptional, but it was exceptional way that it was building. It was so much building in the first movie, and I think I remember Ryan. We probably talked about it. I think we were doing a podcast and talked about it then. And I said, it was big, it was exceptional, but it still felt it's the plague of like a first of a movie. Is it it felt like unfinished. It felt like
It felt like a
we
setup.
something's
It felt
going to
like a
happen
part.
now.
It felt like a part one, and that
Yes.
was sort of like at the time. I remember seeing that movie and being like, "Oh yeah, that's an impressive movie." It's
Yeah.
it's not a full movie. I'm
Hmm.
waiting for the part where it gets good, and there
Yeah.
was like a lot of talk about that movie like being one of the best movies of the year. And I was like,
Mhm.
no, calm down.
Yeah.
It like it's good, but like
Hmm.
the movie does. It's not a complete story. It's well crafted. You got to give it to Dune Part One.
Hmm.
And I did rewatch it. I will say when I rewatched it, I think I did like it a little more, but it still wasn't like a complete thing. Dune Part Two is
Yeah.
better than Dune Part One in every conceivable
It is.
in every
And
conceivable way.
giving the context of after that, I was like, I'm gonna read the book, right? So I read the book just like I basically started it maybe a couple months after Dune 1. And so and I will say that like having read the book, and so when you read the book and you compare it with the movie, you can like how well does, obviously movies and books are different, they can't do everything. How well does it honor the book? I mean, I think truly that like the Dune Part Two not only honors the book, I think it makes scenes in the book way better. There's a certain, and like again, nothing against the original author. Most pretty much 95% of people would be like book better than movie. I'm gonna say here, I don't know if I'm gonna say the movie's better, but the movie helps give such a magnitude to events that are really big deals in the book, like the ending. Like the ending and all that stuff that happens feels so much bigger in the movie. It feels like, whoa, this is like, look at this calamitous war and all this stuff going on. And in the book, it feels like it's a telling of events, and the writing style just does not evoke as much impact, to in my opinion. And so that's why honestly, like number two was like, wow, like this literally made these scenes better for me. I was like, this is a better way to see these scenes than like through the lens of the book, to again, in my opinion. And I
Yeah.
found that to be quite exceptional.
And I think Denis Villeneuve, the director, deserves credit for that. I think the cast deserves credit for
Mhm.
giving fantastic performances. Obviously
Yep.
Timothy and Zendaya, but Javier Bardem, who was like he sort of pops in at the end of the first one, and then he has a much bigger role in this movie, and he's like
Mhm.
quite funny. He's like
Yeah.
oh, that's exactly what the what do they call him?
Oh,
The
Adib.
yeah, that's exactly what he would do.
Mhm.
He's fulfilling the prophecy.
Yeah.
And I was kind of stunned by Austin Butler's performance in this movie
Oh,
also.
Austin
And
Butler, like stellar.
and the like that whole planet sequence
Mhm.
with like the black and white is very stunning
Mhm.
visually. Yeah, like bravo.
Yeah.
Honestly, like it's not my number one on the list, but like I feel like this movie low-key deserves to win Best Picture more than any other movie. I don't know if it's gonna get there. I would like it to, but I there's another movie which I think might be higher on your list that I feel like is more likely to actually win Best Picture, but we'll see. Dune Part Two though, good movie. So, but
Good
one of
movie.
my six to
I
five.
agree.
I guess I'll go into my five then,
Yep, right into your five.
and it's the second sequel on my list, and one of two sequels on my list. Cat jumping on the table, shaking things up. And I actually had never seen the first movie. So made it a point to watch the original, and I was surprised at how good it was and how much I liked it. And then when I watched the second one, I was happy I watched the first one because they sort of play into each other. But enough dilly-dallying. My number five movie is Smile 2.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. Uh,
I've heard good things about it. I've heard it's better than the first one. It looks pretty cool. Again, it's not super up my alley as far as like horror films go, but that's go on. Tell me, more about it a little bit.
I I was legitimately surprised at how well executed like the sort of conceit of what the Smile movies are. Like when I watched the first one, I was like the trailers at least for it made me think like, oh, this is just another one of those like cheesy sort of horror movies with like a weird dumb premise behind it. But it's actually like a sort of like psychological thing where it's like you see like this person like basically breaking down mentally because they don't know what's real and what's not, and like they can't trust anything around them because this thing that's affecting them. And then Smile 2, like honestly, it's kind of wild that they would put this in the second one because the way that they elevate it so quickly to like a person of like social prominence, like a pop star, like to have like the first one is just happening to a random lady, and the second one it's like a person of prominence, and like what that allows for in storytelling is pretty it's just it like the turns it takes are kind of wild, and the place that the movie ends up, it's like there's a certain point in the movie where I saw that ending coming, but the way that it got to the ending and the fact that they actually chose to do the ending I saw coming was quite remarkable to me. Yeah, it's better than it had any right to be. Quite honestly, it's so good. And so I want to talk about the lead actress, Naomi Scott. She does a very good job as she's a pop star diva, and also she's like, experiencing genuine terror and completely unrecognizable. This lady, she played the live action Princess Jasmine in the live action Aladdin. Like, I just think that's worth noting.
What?
Yes.
What ethnicity is she, may I ask? Because
I,
I've
I
seen the trailers and she looks like she's like a Lady Gaga, like
I think
white
because
with blonde hair.
her hair is dyed blonde, like
Mhm.
her skin tone is a little. looks a little more ambiguous in Smile too. And she does have a lighter skin tone, whereas like when she's Princess Jasmine and she has dark hair and like, but I do believe she's like of a sort of mixed descent. I don't have her ethnicity pulled up
I
though.
want to I like want to see like a picture of them both side by side. I mean, obviously it's it's the same person, but I just want to like see that. Okay, actually, let me just say I don't even I didn't really even watch that live action Aladdin movie. So I think I might have watched some of it, but like I don't think I finished it or gave it like full attention. So it's very possible I wouldn't remember or recognize.
Yeah, I try to quickly look it up, but anyways,
Oh.
yeah, like her performance though, very good. Yeah, good movie, surprisingly good movie. All right. And with that, do I go into my number four then? Since we
I
covered
think
yours,
so. Wait, what's her name, by the way? I
Naomi
can actually
Scott.
look it up. Naomi Scott.
Yeah,
Naomi Scott.
Naomi Scott, Princess
Ah,
Jasmine.
very well. Well,
Yeah,
real quick for the viewers, might as well. I could actually share my screen.
share your screen. What?
Just
No.
for all of our, so we all know.
No.
This makes a lot of sense now that I see it more like this.
Yeah, like when she has the
It's
dyed
yeah, it's
blonde
literally like
hair.
right next to each other.
Yeah.
This photo, Jasmine. This photo, this smile girl.
Hmm. But same person.
Same person.
Yeah, so but that like yeah, she is in a powerful performance. She does like dancing choreography and she does singing. Yeah, she deserves to be a star, quite frankly. Good movie. So my number four though, right?
Or number four.
My number four, and the highest ranking horror movie on my list. At one point it could have been higher, but I it my number four is The Substance.
Man, I am so disappointed that I didn't see that. I had it recommended to me so strongly. We tried to watch it. Like there was attempts made where we had plans to go watch it with friends, and it just kept not working out. It just kept not like I was getting too late. Like I go to bed like early, so I mean maybe it's my fault because I can't stay up late and watch movies, but. Like it just did not happen, and we kept being like, "We're gonna watch this weekend. We're gonna definitely watch this weekend. Like, I don't care what happens." And then I heard so much about this movie, and I'm disappointed I didn't get around to watching it. I will go watch it
Yeah,
for sure.
I so there's a part of me that wonders how much you'll enjoy the movie, particularly towards the end of the movie. But like because there are the body horror aspects that I don't know how much you'll be game for, but the movie's not entirely about the body horror, but in a weird way it is entirely about the body horror, but like in a different concept.
Yeah,
Um
I do know the premise is it's
yeah,
about like making a perfect self kind of thing. Like I mean, taking something that changes you. Um,
I want you to try and go in like because you have a basic premise there, but I want you to try and go in without knowing anything else. But yeah,
mhm,
so it stars Demi Moore,
mhm.
who let and we're all hoping she gets nominated for an Oscar for this performance because she deserves it. And she is I believe the movie starts with her on her birthday. I think she turns 50 and she is like facing this crisis in her career in Hollywood because she's become an aged star and they're looking to replace her and she's feeling her age and she's insecure about the fact that she's like becoming a washed up, but then this thing, the substance, comes to her and it it does stuff. It does stuff.
Does stuff apparently.
I yeah,
I really want to watch that. I'm writing down a couple. Like I want to watch the sub. I actually wrote this down before you said it because it reminded me. I was like, man, I need to. It's so funny. I wrote it down before you said it because you reminded me of a movie I really wanted to watch. But I also wrote down Late Night with the Devil and Blink Twice because I want to try and get around to watching those.
Yeah, I would like to hear your opinions on both of those. I think a lot of stuff has been said about The Substance, though. The director, her name's Corley Farge. I don't. It's like I believe she's French, so I don't know if I got that name wrong. But Demi Moore lead performance. Dennis Quaid, giving like an actually quite interesting performance, but like it's unforgettable. And then Margaret Qualley, who I had seen in like a couple other movies this year. Drive Away Dolls and Kinds of Kindness, and she was good in those movies. I don't love those either of those movies, but this movie sort of like proved a bit of star quality, and it's like, oh, she's going places. This girl has something. She's got the gas. Margaret Qualley, put your stocks into that girl. But Demi Moore ultimately is, the star, the what drives the film, and yeah, The Substance. And it came out on my birthday. I watched it on my birthday, and I was like, this is great. And I also know it's Martin's favorite movie of the year. It's his number one. But I it couldn't quite get to my number one spot. I have a few others, but I'll leave it at that. And let's hit your number quattro.
All right. Here's where some recency bias may be in effect. If I got more spaced out from this, maybe I would not feel the same. But I ended up seeing this movie twice and was regularly reminded of it. And I don't even I wouldn't even say I like the songs that much per se, but they are literally like freaking stuck in my head on a daily basis. I can't get them out. Wicked is my number four. I love a good
I,
musical. I ain't afraid to say it, and this is a good musical. All right. And it's hilarious. What's really funny. I gotta share this. I think it's amusing. Is that I saw the play, so I've seen Wicked. I know the whole story. And it was good when we saw it. Totally cool. Ryan and I took our mother to go see this movie because Wizard of Oz is like her favorite movie.
yeah.
I believe one of the only books that mom has ever read is Wicked.
Yeah.
Like,
You guys were both reading the book to go see the play, and I was like, no, thank you. I
yeah,
was too
I didn't actually read the book. She read it, and I remember her being like, because like she doesn't read books, so
young.
she read that book. We watched the play together, and we saw this movie, and we came out, and she was like, "Is that what happened in the movie? Or is that what happened?" And I was like, "I don't remember that happening." I was like, "Mom, that's definitely what happened. That's exactly what happened." Like this, she was like, "What happens after that?" And I was like,
Part
well."
two.
Well, yeah, and it's funny again because I know. I mean, I know the whole story. I get spoilers, but like I know what happens. But for people, again, don't know what happens in the play. We saw it with Angela and Martin. Like none of you guys know what happens in the second part. And so I'm hearing the thing is like I hear people like saying, and I've heard other people saying like predictions of like what this and that, and I just keep being like I'm
It's
just like I just can't say anything.
it's funny when people make predictions about something where like people already know what happens.
Yeah,
But it's funny though because I do have like my own prediction that I don't like, and I heard Martin had a prediction that I ended up getting confirmed because like I'll listen to movie podcasts and or people talk about Wicked and people just think it's really fun to just talk about what happens in part two sometimes. I'm like, oh, okay, now I know that's confirmed. I don't know the
yeah.
full extent to it, but there's like things that I know and have confirmed about what occurs in part two. But
Yeah.
also
It's
earlier when I was talking about Doom Part Two, and I said that I would like it to win Best Picture, but I think a movie on your higher up on your list would win Best Picture. I feel like Wicked's gonna win Best Picture. That's like
it's
that's sort of where it's at right now, and I wouldn't be mad at it. It does deserve it. It is another fantastic film.
yeah.
And it is quite popular.
Yeah. And I see what you did there. But one, songs are catchy as hell. And on the point of like the thing is, this is one of those things of like it's like saying you spoiled Dune, you know? Dune has literally two movies and it's been out for like 30 years. Nobody's spoiling anything. You know, this is kind of the same thing. Like the Wicked book's been out since like the 80s, and this play's been going on for friggin' 20 years or something. Maybe not 20, but like for quite a while.
2003,
It's
yeah.
nobody's really spoiling anything, you know, like in the end, but I was like, hey, you know, maybe you could watch this movie and not get exposed to anything about part two and go into part two and, you know, like discover and see what happens in a way that's more surprising, which would be cooler that way. When I
But
watched
like
the play,
you went
I
into
didn't.
you went into this knowing what happened and you had a great time.
Yes, exactly. I know. I will say in some ways it's like you could say I kind of forgot some of it. It's been quite a while, understandably. So it's not like I, you know, knew exactly, but like as I saw everything, I was like, oh, I remember this, all this now. I know where all this goes now.
Yeah.
Um,
And like I've heard that the movie also fleshes out the musical a little bit more and adds some of the
mhm,
stuff that the musical cut from the book back
mhm,
in. So there's more book stuff. Like I think some of the animal stuff is like more fleshed out in the book and is now more fleshed out in the movie than it was in the
mhm.
musical. But
Yeah. You know, an interesting thing too is like, so obviously on the play, there are people playing the animals.
yeah.
So, you know, the animal people. And so that element is more akin to like the original Wizard of Oz. Like, I mean, the Cowardly Lion was like just a guy in a costume. And so you're like, ah, it's like, you know, animal people. But in this, it's just animals. It's just like legit animals. And so
Yeah.
that's an interesting little like again, you know, part of it being a movie and them being able to do that was like, oh, well, that's interesting. Um, but one, yeah, songs are catchy. I literally was like really quite surprised at how good like Ariana Grande's performance was.
She is incredible. She like sometimes I feel bad talking too much about Oscars in context of films, but like
Mhm,
she deserves an award. She's incredible.
mhm.
She is my winner of that award. Like, and I've seen other strong performances. It's her. She did
Yeah.
it. She did the damn thing.
Yep. And again, that really took me away. Again, it's big, it's bright, it's beautiful. The colors, the this, the that. It's sensational. You know, and dude, these songs, like I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's a friggin' some kind of like
Something has changed within you. Something is not the same.
yeah. These songs, I don't. Again, it's not even like I'm like I love the songs. Angela has played them like quite a few times. Like we've listened to them in the car and stuff. I like them enough to listen to them in the car. But like I wake up in the morning and like hear it playing in my head. It's like it's I'm like the this like this is getting a little much. Like please get out of my head. Please stop. So
Make it stop.
but and it like just shows the impact, right? Like you know, a good musical. I like a good musical, good catchy, you know, catchy tune. I like how it elevates the performance. It's all, you know, just very well done and stuff. And yeah, like again, recency bias maybe, but like, you know, it's, you know, it has a momentous impact. And I did actually end up seeing it twice. So, but yeah, that's the four.
Number four. So you're three.
My three, and again, this is where not recency bias, you know, older movie, again, almost forgot it. Um, until I looked at your list. Monkey Man.
Monkey Man, the
Monkey
director
Man
of Dev Patel.
with Dev Patel. I just remember being like, man, what a brutal, gruesome, but like really awesome, like unique, like action movie. You know, just like kind of like a gritty freaking, you know, tale of an underdog just winning, you know, but like just getting like knocked down and getting right back up all the way to the end. You know, not being, you know, in some ways like a again, you know, it's everything you kind of want out of an action movie, where it's you know, it's like you know, like fighting, you know, guys getting cut, freaking shot, like all this you know stuff going on, like, and but in like an action movie where it's not a you know, it's not like someone who's super, you know, he's not a superhero, he's
He's
not
not
like
John Wick.
yeah, he doesn't start out and he's like, you know, he's like a badass, like, oh, I'm a badass, I'm gonna fight every guy and kick their ass. He's like, you know, like literally like a, you know, like a cage fighter, but like a bad one. Like he gets beat up and like loses all the time. And And you see like there's like a little bit of a training sequence montage where he, hones his skills and gets back into shape a little bit. But like it's just like grit. Like it's like will. The guy like just keeps, that's his element. He's like, I'm gonna do this. And so I just remember really liking the essence of it and just, great, brutal, brutal combat. And yeah, I thought back to myself, and when I saw that the title, I was like, oh yeah, that's that one. I was like tallying stuff up, and I was kind of like doing like a little notes on it. I was like, yeah, this one's got to be high. This one's in my top five for sure.
Yeah, no, yeah, Monkey Man. It is a pretty kick-ass action movie. I like I in a year where I feel like there were action movies, and maybe I didn't get to see as many, all that many, but I'd rank it maybe one of the higher of the year, if not the best action movie. It's not super high on my own list specifically, but yeah, it's good. He did a good job, and directing himself in the movie also quite impressive, and like the physicality of his performance especially. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Not much else to say about that, or at least for me, but
Yep, that's right. Well, you're number three. We are in the top threes. I mean, that was one of my top threes.
okay. So my number three is a pretty out there one. I've heard this movie referenced by a movie critic that I sort of respect since like the beginning of the year. And like recently I learned that it was gonna be like in their top 10, and I was like, okay, let me just get around to watching this movie. And it's an experience like nothing else I've ever seen in a movie. The movie is called Hundreds of Beavers.
Okay.
And it is a black and white movie that's I I would say it's like akin to like a Looney Tunes cartoon, or like an old timey like sort of slapstick routine, but it is live action. And it was basically about this guy who is an Applejack salesman, like an alcohol salesman, who has his a business in app in selling that destroyed, and he has to become a fur trapper. But the thing with him becoming a fur trapper is that it, the animals in this movie are all portrayed by men in mascot costumes, not actual animals. And I like it's a movie I can't really describe it. Well, I am describing it, but like the only way to really know what this movie is to watch it and experience it. And it's like one of the funniest things I've ever seen, and the way that the jokes like build on each other, and the payoffs like you get a payoff, and then you get another payoff, and you get another payoff that you weren't expecting off of one like sort of setup. And it's just delightful. It's such a good movie.
Wow. I love how that sounds like a very alternative concept, and I can imagine how it works.
Yeah, and it's one of three movies on my list that has basic virtually no talking. This one of the three movies that are pretty much dialogue free, this one gets the closest to there being talking, but it's more like "Ooh," and stuff like that. But Hundreds of Beavers, it's great.
Hundreds of beavers. Well, I think that leads us into your number two, the top two.
Which is one of the other movies that has no talking in it. I I've learned that apparently if a movie is good enough, it doesn't need dialogue. Um and this is another one that's an animated movie with no dialogue. And I maybe recency bias because I've watched it within the past month, but at number two, I have my favorite animated movie of the year, Flow, which is a Latvian animation production that basically follows a black cat um, trying to basically navigate like trying to make its way after a major flood has occurred in its home, and it's sort of like working with other animals along the way to sort of mm, like sort of navigate the fact that like everything is flooding and like the water is rising, and it's like it in a way like all the animals are portrayed as like naturalistic animals, like the way that animals would actually act. But then at the same time, they're doing things that like animals wouldn't do, like they're getting on boats and stuff, and like like but it's just this again, it's this little movie that just like spoke to me, and the way that these animals like again they don't talk, they're animals, they're like real animals, but like they you see them having like interactions with each other, and you can sort of like read it like that they're understanding, but like in an animal way. I don't it This movie is very good. It's very good. I love it.
I respect that. It sounds
Yeah,
cute.
it is cute. Quite frankly, this is the movie that should win Best Animated Picture, and I don't even like. I have no like it should get it. I don't think it's gonna get it. I think The Wild Robot's probably gonna win that. And if you notice, that was not in my top 10. And it like I don't even. I think Inside Out 2 is better than The Wild Robot. Also,
Wild Robot
but
looked kind of stupid to me.
it's not stupid. It's not a bad movie. It's good. But I don't quite see all the hype it's gotten. And having watched Flow, like you, if it was just Inside Out 2, I would have been like, oh, okay, yeah. I'd rather that win, but I'm not upset about the Wild Robot winning. But now I like Memoir of a Snail and Flow. Like both of those movies spoke to me more than the Wild Robot did, and so it's hard for me to see the Wild Robot like just sort of run away with like the lead on that. And but no, I don't want to talk that other movie down too much. Just say Flow is good. If you like animation, then definitely worth your time. It's so good. It's so good.
Hell yeah.
Or numero dos.
Okay. My number two, maybe recency bias. I saw it yesterday. Nosferatu.
Oh, I was gonna see that, but I never saw Nosferatu 1.
You get out. We're done. Shut it down. Shut it down.
I also saw Nosferatu 2. My theater experience was not ideal, so I worry that that may have hurt my enjoyment of it, but it was definitely the strong film.
Yeah. So let me say, like, this movie is exactly the vibe, the true tone that I would want out of a vampire movie. I mean, it is literally like the vampire movie, like it is the original vampire movie,
Well,
and
it's the ripoff of Dracula.
it's a ripoff of Dracula. Yeah, but it whatever this movie captures a tone that we're the newsflash, anybody that's watching this, I'm a giant nerd and I like playing D&D. And we have played a D&D adventure path setting called Curse of Strahd, and it's basically like it's a vampire like thing. And there's a vampire there named Count Strahd von Zarovich. And the tone of that adventure path, what I always imagined if I was going to play a game, would be the tone of this movie. I've never quite gotten that tone whenever I've actually tried to play, that adventure path. But that's what I've always wanted. I was in this movie and I was like, this is the kind of dread and like, fear and like gruesomeness and like that I would want to see. Like how how uh how this vampire like it has its weaknesses. It references like everything, like, oh, stake it through the heart, garlic, silver, this and that, like all these different like things it sort of like brings into play. But yeah, the tone it sets, there's scenes that are just like, I mean, I just thought it was fantastic. I walked out, I was like, wow, that was good. I will give it credit again, recency bias could literally be because I I mean, I just watched it yesterday.
Mhm.
And so very well could be, but I still, even if I were to be like get away from it a little further and lower it, it's still probably in my top 10. It's probably above the six five ish spot in here, even if it were to shift around. But I
Honestly,
just
yeah.
love the tone.
At number two, I respect the choice. Yeah, and I want to give like the thing. If there's anything I really liked about the movie, it was all the acting performances. Lily Rose Depp,
She friggin' stellar. Like
stellar.
she puts on a performance.
Yes. Nicholas Hoult, solid as always. Willem
Mhm.
Dafoe, anytime
Yeah,
he's on screen, I'm having a good
it's
time.
I'll say this, Willem Dafoe at this point is he's kind of just himself in these movies, but his self works like every time.
It
So
does. It really do. He seems to be a
and
favorite of Robert Eggers, the director.
yeah, I looked this up because I was like, I wonder who played Nosferatu.
Bill
Fucking Bill
Skarsgård.
Skarsgård.
Yeah,
Like
I was
what
gonna
the
ask you if you knew that.
yeah,
He is
I literally
unrecognizable. That is
it's yeah,
Pennywise. That is
it's
Pennywise.
totally ridiculous. Like that for that's Bill Skarsgård.
You wouldn't
You would never be able to know that
the
that's him.
voice, the presence, the face. His eyes don't even look the same
It's
because
yeah, nothing about
because he has
like
recognizable eyes. The
mhm.
the new Crow guy,
Yeah,
damn.
yeah. Which
I
touch on Crow. Crow, a little disappointing.
I did not watch that. But I did get around to watching the original, and that was good.
Yeah, this one, meh, pretty meh. But that brings us to our number one. And I think in my head, I'm like, it's like, is it your number one or did you just not like it that much?
I I it's like it's possible that it's your number one, that we have the
Mhm.
same number one, but it's like I'm on the edge of my seat. What is your number one, brother? You
My
do
number
your
one is Challengers.
thank God it is my number one. It is the best
Okay.
movie of the year.
I sat here thinking, I was like, man, like as we got up and up, like I didn't know if it was going to be your number one, but I kept thinking, like, once we got past two, I was like, either he didn't like it that much, which I'm like, how did he not like it that much? How did it
I
not get into
I
the top 10?
I made it. I messaged you. Go watch this movie.
Yeah. So yeah, Challengers. I felt, I looked at all the movies on this list, and again, like I just felt it, and I was like, that fucking movie ruled. Like,
Literally, fucking Luca Guadagnino, he put it everything into that movie. Zendaya, Josh
yeah.
O'Connor, Mike Bice. I told you he'd be on my list again.
Yes, I knew, and so that's I kind of knew that it had to be, but I almost started like doubting myself. But because when you said that, I was like, ah, yes, we must be. So, but so funny you said Dune. You mentioned like, you mentioned people putting on good performances. I actually didn't think like Zendaya's like performance was spectacular per se. I will say that like in some ways they didn't, like her character in the movie, like in the books, in the movie, doesn't have like a huge role. It again, it's not like don't make it Zendaya, but like they like really played it out like Zendaya was more important to the movie in Dune. And then she just, she was like there and she did a good, fair, fine performance, but it wasn't anything spectacular. Fucking Challengers, like Zendaya put that shit on. Like I mean,
Yeah.
that's if there was ever any, and I know she's been in other films where she's really put on great performances, but yeah, that one was like, it's just that movie's fucking something else.
I like it, and anytime I just remember Challengers or like I went to that movie, hoping it would be a good movie. Obviously, I'd heard good stuff about it, but nothing could have prepared me for the sort of theatrical experience I had.
Mhm.
I remember I remember being in my theater seat in like the end scene. Like I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the movie ends with a tennis match, but in that end tennis match, when things start like happening, I'm literally like gripping my chair. I start like leaning forward. I'm like I am on this movie. I'm like what like just like it just builds up and it builds up. The score that Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross score in this movie, sometimes maybe it's a little too loud, but I think
That's
all that's intentional, and I think it
yeah.
does it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So yeah, the score, the way that it guides like what we're watching with it, like the tonality in like 80% of the film is like perfect. One of my criticisms that actually it was like one of the a very small thing that prevented me from giving it to like an A plus, but I did give this movie like an A. I was like, wow, that was fucking stellar. Is I think there was like one or two moments where the music it being like fantastic throughout the movie was like not like for me, I was like, this doesn't feel like what I'm getting out of the scene almost. And again, that could just be totally an opinion, my personal opinion. But that's where like there was just something about like where so much of the movie is so good and so, right and like the music elevates what we're watching so much and matches it and the thing in that movie is is how it recurs certain tones. It brings them back purposefully. It ignites them and it like captures emotion from here and transports it to here and amplifies it and then does the same thing later. And then by the end of the movie, I mean, it's going like, it turns it to fucking 11. And like, I mean, it brings, the score is huge and brings you through that journey, which is why one of the only points I point out is that there's a part of the movie where it doesn't like work. It doesn't work for me. I was like, this was a choice. Like,
Yeah. I look, hey, you know what? Like again, I feel like there are parts where it's like when I was watching it, I was like, this is a choice that is being made with this music right now. I don't
mm,
know if it's a choice I would make, but
yeah,
like it is it feels intentional though. It feels
hmm
like an artistic choice. And
hmm
like it I think it's that. I
hmm
like the movie is just like spectacular. I think it's one of the
hmm
best movies I've ever seen, period
yeah.
personally. Like,
It's just so well crafted. It's so like again, funny thing. It's like this is the cool thing about movies, right? All the stuff you talked about, right? You were like Memoirs of a Snail, friggin' 100 Beavers, right? Like Challengers, movie that would be the number one, truly like such a well-crafted film is a fucking film about like tennis, you
hey,
know?
everything's tennis except for tennis, which is sex.
Yeah. Everything's about tennis. I'm always talking about tennis.
Tennis.
Yeah. But yeah, that one, again, looking at that list, I was just like, psh, yeah. I think I mean it. I don't know if we did a podcast like earlier this year or talked about like our halfways and stuff. But like I probably mentioned, I was like, this is probably gonna be one of like the number ones, like top five best movies of the year.
Yeah, I when I watched it, I was like, what? I had the hope, like I always have the hope that the next movie I watch is gonna be like one of my new favorite movies. But like I left that movie, I'm like, well, that's it. That's it. Like the way that
Yeah.
it like the thing that I think the thing that also got me about it is that I walked out of it and I was like, oh well, screw Dune Part Two. If I had to pick
hmm
one Zendaya movie that was originally supposed to come out last year but was delayed because of the SAG strike,
hmm
I'm thinking Challengers.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. That yeah, movie stellar. Glad that we ended up at the right at the same place. It looks like we still, even despite me watching, 100, I mean, not you watching five times as many movies as me. We ended up in some basically the same place. We can agree.
Yeah. If we still have time, I think we do. I want to touch on some honorable mentions. You might not have as many as I do, or might not have any at all, but let me just sort of run through.
Yep. Run through
I I,
some.
I have a handful. Anora, good movie. The Teacher's Lounge. Wicked, you talked about. Inside Out 2, you talked about. All the Strangers. Conclave, that's a good movie. I think you would actually really dig it. Love Lies Bleeding, A Complete Unknown. I just watched that, the Timothy Chalamet Bob Dylan movie. Some other ones that are just a little bit lower for me. Uh, A Real Pain, Alien Romulus. I saw the TV Glow. If I don't know if it's a great movie, but it made me cry. Lisa Frankenstein. I don't know if it's a great movie, but it gave me major nostalgia. Uh, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot this year. I don't want to go on forever with honorable mentions. Do you have any?
So I want to mention I want to mention one that I have. I want to mention Red One because Red
It's a
One
fun.
was a movie where I remember I saw the trailers and I was like, this movie looks like it could suck, but it also looks like maybe it'll be just kind of good. And so I went to watch it with Angela, and I remember thinking, I was like, this movie honestly kind of just works. It
Hmm.
works, you know, like I'm not gonna say it's like a feat of a, you know, film by any means. And but I will say I was like, yeah, that was good. Like that was solid. I dig this. Chris Evans and The Rock, these characters, this works for me. I said to myself, I was like, I would like to see more of this Santa, this you know, mythical creature universe thing they kind of set up here.
Yeah. I and that Santa the delivering the present scene at the end of the movie. Ooh, so good. So
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
Uh and like if like again, I've said this about other movies. Like if I grew up on this movie, I would love this movie. This would be like
Yeah.
I would feel like this was like a classic.
Yeah, I can imagine that this is maybe will be classic for some, you know, like some other
For newer
generations of
generation.
folks.
Yes.
Um, I'll point out one movie that I found to be like a couple movies that are like I'm gonna point out some like disappointing ones. The Crow, disappointing.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to like it, thought it would be cooler. Not nearly as cool as I hoped for. Long Legs.
I didn't really get into it much either.
It like I you know I was somewhat intrigued. Again, I was like wondering what was going on a bit. It really was like playing itself out, and like I was like, okay, like I'm on the ride. I want to see where this goes. And that's like an example of a movie that where the landing was like that
Yeah.
sucked. That's
Yeah.
what it was. Like at the end, I was like, this is fucking stupid. Like
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. That Longlegs disappointed, definitely disappointed me.
yeah,
Um, I wouldn't put it as one like for me because I watched so many movies. It's not one of my worst of the year, but yeah, it definitely didn't live up to what I was hoping out of it.
yeah. And like I said, it's like I mean, a lot of movies that I watched, you know, like I knew some of them I knew were gonna be like pretty, you know, meh or whatever going in. I measured my expectations. I thought Long Legs, look, that was one where the trailer, like, wow, that looks really intriguing. I'm really interested to see what this is about. Be something. And the journey was okay, and but like the finish was just bad. And like for like if it's one thing, you know, in some ways it's like, okay, the movie's like, whoa, this is really building up to something big and great, and then it doesn't have a great finish. At least the ride was pretty okay, and it can feel worse. It can be like, wow, how disappointing. But again, at least getting there was good. This movie was like pretty okay. It was like acceptable. It was like I'm assuming that there's a this all comes together at the end, and then it just didn't. So it was like, wow, that was like that makes it extra fucking like not great. Again, it's not like terrible. It's not fucking like, oh my God, that was like the worst movie I ever saw. But it was like notably like not good, which was disappointing.
Yeah. I want to touch on some of my like worst movies and I the one because it's kind of had a similar dynamic, the one I'm going to bring up first. I just watched it the other day is the Amy Adams movie Night Bitch where like I actually thought it was a pretty good movie most of the way through and then there's like a point in the movie where I'm like, "Oh, I'm just not on the side of this main character at all. I don't identify with her at all. I think she's actually a bad person. And then she goes on to basically like get rewarded for being a bad I just don't like the conclusion the movie comes to. And like maybe it's just because I don't have the perspective of a mother, but yeah, the that that movie just sort of like completely lost me to the point where I left it, finished the movie, and I was like, oh, I hated that. I'm upset that exists.
I literally saw that. Can't remember what it was on some service. It like popped. I think it was on. It's on Disney Plus. Like it's literally on Disney Plus, which is funny.
I think
Like
I watched it
we
through
were like
Hulu maybe.
the Night Bitch. Like
Yeah.
That's on Disney Plus. Okay. But I remember we were thinking like, what is this about? Like, you know.
Turns into a dog at night. She's a night
Okay.
bitch. Yeah.
Okay.
Other bad movies this year. Venom: The Last Dance, disappointingly bad. Um,
I knew that. I didn't even, bro, that got no fucking marketing. Like
I
that
know.
that movie
I'm
just like
only gonna be
snuck
bad
in.
because
All of a sudden there was a Venom movie out
yeah,
and then it was gone.
I could tell from the lack of marketing that it was going to be bad, but I wanted to see Tom Hardy off. And like if there's anything redeemable about the movie, it's Tom Hardy doing his darndest with a script that barely exists at all. The Garfield movie, trash. I don't blame Chris Pratt for it, but it's a trash movie.
What is
The
he? Is he who is he in? Is he
Garfield,
Garfield?
yeah, Chris
Ah,
Pratt and Garfield. Um, the Netflix movie Lift, bad, like forgettable trash. Maybe a controversial thing to say. I thought Ghostbusters Frozen Empire was fucking terrible. I hated it.
also
Uh,
didn't watch it. Also heard it was fucking again, I have taken it on when I sort of get like wind that something's not very good, I just don't go watch it anymore, you
I
know?
think I think it's the worst Ghostbusters movie. And which is really
Seems
sad because Afterlife was the best since the first one. Like Afterlife was the second best, and I think this one is like the decidedly the worst.
it's an opinion that's best since the first one, but I do agree I liked Afterlife. I thought it was good like coming back, so
Yeah. And then the worst movie I saw this year, and I knew it was gonna be bad, but I think what got me to like go see it out of curiosity was a combination of factors. One factor was that I miss when they used to make parody movies, when those used to be a thing, even though a lot of them were bad. My young brain watching a lot of the maybe mediocre ones was still able to have a good time. Like I still like if I watched Epic Movie right now, I would have a ton of laughs with it. I would have a good time. Also, the fact that this movie has Jamie Foxx in it, I was like, oh, he's not going to be in something so terribly awful. But he was. There's a movie called Not Another Church Movie, and
saw
it's
it on
like
your list.
yeah, it's like a parody of Tyler Perry movies. But like it like has like no actual has like no structure to the plot. The best moments in the movie are when this guy who's like doing a parody of like Tyler Perry and Medea as a at like within the movie. And like there's scenes where he just does a scene from a Tyler Perry movie like not modified at all. It feels like he's just doing the scene again, but like he's playing the characters, so it's a parody, but it's not. He's just like stealing a bit that was like maybe funny when Tyler Perry did it, but it's not funny in this movie because I've seen it before. Freaking and the other thing, Jamie Foxx is in it, crazy. Kyla Pratt, I believe it was her that was also in it, who like like she was in like Dr. Doolittle. She's the voice of Penny Proud. Like like you would recognize her like from I recognize her from my childhood, and she's just like she's in it. I'm like, God, is this what's happened? Like I feel so sad that she's doing that. It was a terrible movie. One of the worst things I've ever seen. Honestly, parody movies, like if this
Bro,
movie
that's
is the reason another they never make another one, I wouldn't even I'd be like, okay, that's fair.
yeah. Yeah, parody movies are pretty like out. Like
Yeah, but like I liked the first four scary movies. I didn't see the fifth one because I heard it was bad. Um and I liked Epic Movie. I like Date Movie. I like they always have like some parts that are maybe like a little just I don't like always the gross out humor that they'll do, but like there's like I have like cherished memories from parody movies, and this movie gave me nothing. Like it rivals Disaster Movie for one of the worst movies I've ever seen, which is again another parody movie, and that was like the biggest piece of trash I've ever seen. Disaster Movie is the worst movie I've ever seen, but this rivals it.
yeah. The first few scary movies, funny enough. And then like I think maybe there are some other ones, but like frankly, most parody movies are like fucking hot trash. Like
Yeah, but I like there's bits in them that I like.
yeah, like
Um,
there might be bits that kind of hit, but I
the
mean for the
kids
most
have
part,
escaped. The kids
yeah.
have escaped. The kids have escaped. I yeah. Hey, but so we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah,
I don't know how long
let's
we've been
wrap it.
doing this.
Yeah,
Um,
but solid. I like that I came away with some stronger. I mean, just really just reminders to go watch some movies that I had did want to watch. And The Late Night with the Devil is a good recommendation. Um, let me. So you heard those three that I picked out myself. If you could compel me, brother, to go watch a film, not including these ones I already picked out, what one would you tell me to go watch?
I think you would dig Conclave. And I believe it's streaming on Peacock. You would enjoy Conclave. I feel quite strongly you would enjoy that movie.
Cool.
And A Real Pain as well. That one might not be on streaming yet, but
A
it's
Real
got
Pain.
A Real Pain, yeah. It's got Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin.
Oh man, that was another movie I totally wanted to watch. I remember
Mhm.
seeing the trailers for it and being like, wow, that looks like it's probably like pretty, like good. Just I
Yeah,
them together, I was like, this seems like a good match.
yeah. Like I listed out my honorable mentions, and those both of those were in it. And but those are the two where I'm like, oh, these you seen them, I think they could have been on your list. Because
Mm,
I like, yeah, I think you would dig both of them.
righteous.
And also
Excellent.
Conclave, I think has a good chance of being up for Best Picture, and it may be also A Real Pain. I think they both have a chance of being in awards talk. So if we do another Oscars podcast,
Mhm.
you'll need to get around to them anyways,
Yep.
possibly.
Very well. Well, always good to connect over and reflect over the movies.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can sign this off. So, until next time, this has been Robert.
And I'm Ryan.
Peace.